Have you ever seen something from the corner of your eye that wasn't there when you looked again? How about hearing from a friend of a friend that while they were hiking somewhere, they thought they saw something impossible? When they spoke to a ranger, there was always a simple explanation that left you unsatisfied. My name is Chris, and this is my colleague Jack, and we're senior wardens for the Creature Conservation Initiative. We protect the world from the creatures of superstition and myth, but more importantly, protect those same creatures from the world. Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode. I bet you did not expect this. Or maybe you did because we do one of these every 2 weeks, which we should probably talk more about, that we actually have a schedule that we stick to, but that's neither here nor there. Jack, save me, say something useful.
I don't think we can save you. We're just going to move on.
Fair enough. Absolutely fair enough.
That useful?
Well, no, but I appreciate the honesty.
But yes, Chris is correct in the sense that we do actually have a schedule. If you've noticed, if you're a long-time listener, which I'm sure there's a couple of them here and there who pick and choose, but if you're a long-time listener, we tend to come out with one of these every about 2 or so weeks. If we come up with a special, potentially we might throw that in randomly here and there, but otherwise, yeah, if you can't get enough of Blink and You'll Miff It, every 2 weeks on a Tuesday, that's the release time.
Yeah. Your uncle's nephew's favorite podcast.
Yep. The favorite podcast of the people you've never met before. They exist, I promise.
They probably do. Can't argue with that. Sounds like you're in a good mood today.
Yes, I've been spending a little bit of time in the water today.
Ooh.
And last couple of days here and there myself, but not.
You fist fight the Leviathan.
No, but we've got that ready for June the 5th. Take him out. Go on. Get it.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah.
So my funeral is June the 9th. It's that quick because we don't expect to find anything.
Closed casket then, I suppose.
No casket. No remains.
Just a bowl of seawater.
We think he was here.
A shark could probably smell his blood in the bowl.
But anyway, I've been investing in myself a little bit the last couple of days.
Ooh.
So looking after myself a little bit better and spending some time swimming, which is something I absolutely love to do and haven't done it enough. But it's not about me today. It's about you. What have you been doing?
Well, nothing useful. Most of the time, I try not to make myself too good at anything, or else I'm gonna have to do work.
You're doing an excellent job.
Exactly. And yeah, despite all my efforts, I've actually been to Japan just the other week, and that's where I thought we might go today. So fasten your seatbelts. I will be your pilot for today. There's all reason to panic.
We're all dead.
Yes. And we are talking about the Baku today.
The Baku.
Does that mean anything to you?
I recognize the name, but it's not one I've come across personally.
I think there's a Pokemon version of it. Maybe you've seen it there.
Really?
I think so. So I think as a start, it's good to talk about how this creature came to be, at least according to legend. That legend is very succinct and beautiful. And basically it says, when the gods created all the animals on Earth, the elephants and the mice and the cows and the bears and the tigers and whatnot, when they were done with all of that, they took all the pieces that were left over and put them together and made the Baku from that.
Okay. So, scrap beast, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. It's described as having the trunk and sometimes the tusks of an elephant, the ears of a rhinoceros, which is very specific, but you know how it is.
Yeah, you know, rhinos very famous for their ears.
Exactly. I mean, what else would they be famous for? They also have the tail of a cow, the body of a bear, and the paws of a tiger.
Okay.
That's a kind of traditional description of that.
Yeah.
You might see this as a wild mixture of different animals, or if you squint your eyes a bit, you might say, sounds a little bit like a tapir. Tapir? However you pronounce that.
Yeah, I know what you're on about. Tapir, the long nose, weird
Exactly.
tongue thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And there is a relationship because the Japanese word, or the, what's it called, the kanji, is actually the same for the mythological creature and for the, I think, the Malayan tapir.
Oh, the Malayan tapir. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, they look a little bit similar, but apparently there was some confusion in history, as there tends to be. They actually originated in Chinese folklore.
Okay.
It was called the Mo, which is their name for a giant panda, which is something entirely different. But apparently, through some kind of history and language nonsense, it also describes tapirs and this chimera kind of creature.
Okay.
And we've known it there, or the Chinese have written about it there in about the 7th, 8th century, somewhere in the Tang dynasty. Not that I know very much about dynasties, but that was around the time.
I mean, I know only a little bit about the Han Dynasty, and that's just because I'm listening to the Romance of the Three Kingdoms. That's about it.
That's more than I know. But from there, it kind of migrated over, I suppose, to Japan in some way or another, where they kind of got familiar with it in the 14th, 15th century, so there was a little bit of a gap. And ever since then, they seem to be mainly in Japan, and we're not quite sure why. Maybe life is just better in Japan, or maybe they were hunted to extinction over in China.
Entirely possible.
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So it's a traveling, it's a migrant. It migrates across from China to Japan and seems to find its life.
Not on purpose, I don't think. I think it was more a case of it happened to kind of be put on a boat or something and shipped over there. And then they found that, I don't know, they like vending machines with dubious contents.
Okay, I need to know, is the vending machines with dubious contents connected to this creature?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, cool.
I was just trying to come up with a way to connect this, but I'm afraid I can't do it.
Well, I was just thinking, because obviously last week we basically found out a little bit about the Inuit origin of the furry. And this week we're talking about you went on to dubious contents of a vending machine, so
No, I'm afraid I'm gonna have to disappoint you.
To say peek behind the curtain, not that disappointed to hear that we're not talking about dubious contents of a vending machine in Japan.
Yeah, maybe better that way. So, trying to get back on track here, they are rather shy creatures. They are quite benevolent, actually. They are not aggressive in any way, usually. They're actually kind of revered as guardian spirits and protectors of humanity and protectors against evil, that kind of stuff. So they have a long history.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, they have a long history of being this kind of guardian, not quite deity, but linked to divinity kind of creature that is here to kind of help us a little bit. And really only a little bit. We'll get to that. Because they don't really do very much, but it's better than nothing, I suppose.
Okay, so we've got a bit of a weird-looking tapir that's been made up of everything else in the world. That migrated from China to Japan, and that is revered as a guardian spirit that doesn't really guard us.
Yes.
Excellent, good start.
I mean, it guards us, but only in a very, very specific context.
Go for it.
They are sometimes depicted with flames, but we haven't seen anyone actually burning, so I guess that was just artistic liberty.
That's a weird thing with a lot of these creatures. People seem to want to say that they, like, breathe fire in some way or can produce fire in some way. Half the time, they don't.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just because, fire makes everything cooler. That's just a fact.
All right, well, carry on.
So, they are said to protect against illness and evil and all of that kind of thing. Today we know that they have certain properties, but that mainly benefits themselves. Like their fur has a certain antimicrobial properties to them, which results in them getting sick less often, but that really doesn't benefit anyone else, usually.
I mean, it benefits them quite immensely, but...
Exactly, but it's not like it's any kind of guardian role for us.
True, yeah.
But the main thing they do, which wasn't really mentioned in the earliest kind of writings about them, is that they eat nightmares. And that part is actually true.
Okay. That's true. That's not a part of the myth.
Yeah, I mean, a nightmare is a nebulous concept, of course, but they do... What's a proper word for this? They absorb psychological energies. Can you say that? That sounds very stupid, but...
I think I know what you're on about. So
I'm not sure on the terminologies.
Yeah, I think I can get what you mean. So they kind of absorb the negative energies that come from these kind of nightmares.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming, as a result, you end up having a restful sleep?
Yeah, that's pretty much the idea. So usually,
Cool.
The way it's described is that you have a nightmare and then you call on them to eat the nightmare so you can go back to sleep.
Oh, so it actually takes away... It's not just it stops the... Let's say the psychological impact on your like brain, but it actively you recognize it's there, and they heal that damage by eating it.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Awesome.
I mean, eating is probably not the right word, but for simplicity's sake, let's call it that.
I'm hungry, so that might be a bit of a Freudian slip there. I want food.
Yeah. I mean, I started saying that, so it's my fault. Anyway, yeah, that's a very interesting property they have. It's kind of a telepathic connection that they use to kind of slurp up any usually negative like emotions, nightmares, stuff like that.
Awesome.
And yeah, as I said, that was not mentioned in the very old text, which leads us to believe that either, I don't know, maybe people just didn't notice, or maybe there's some kind of evolution going on here that it developed this ability over time.
Yeah,
but
maybe.
the modern day one definitely has these kind of mental abilities, and they
Wow.
have had that for a while, and there's a lot of tradition about that. They're often the kanji for the Baku, so the writing symbol is embroidered on pillows to defend against nightmares and stuff like that. And
Yeah, a big part of the Japanese culture is, symbols of protection and things like that, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and apparently, I'm not sure how much that is done today, but children were taught that when they have a nightmare, when they wake up, they say 3 times, "Baku-san, come and eat my dream," and the Baku will come into the room and eat the nightmare. They can go back to sleep.
Okay.
But they were advised to not overuse this, because if they are still hungry after eating the nightmare, it can also eat your hopes and desires and wants. And we used to think that this is mainly a kind of mythological explanation for depression and that kind of thing, but
have we got documented cases of them eating hopes, dreams, and...
Unfortunately, yes. They don't usually do that. They are usually very friendly and benevolent, but there are certain circumstances where they can develop like behavioral disorders, where they tend to be a little bit like aggressive and confused, and they eat more than they should or different things than they should, and yeah, that doesn't end well for the human in question.
I can believe that.
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
Cautionary
tale. Benevolent creature, but don't take the mick.
Exactly. That's pretty much the gist of it. So you can imagine it was often hunted and killed for these properties, because as soon as an animal is said to have any kind of magical ability, people will make charms out of their body parts. So
excellent. And let me guess, they, as you say, they hunted it, killed it, made charms, and those charms had no effect.
Not a lot. I mean, probably there's some kind of placebo effect there for some of them, but
Yeah.
usually it doesn't really do anything. But, you know, that didn't stop people from selling their pelts to protect against the disease. Of course,
Yeah.
people would make dream catchers out of their and bone parts and stuff, and other like talismans and whatnot.
Yeah. Sometimes some people do ask us why we don't just let some of these creatures kind of get just let them out into the world for the general public to, you know, to experience. And it's shit like this.
Exactly. Yeah. There's a strong possibility that this is the reason why they are not around in China anymore.
Yeah. Ugh. Okay. Carry on.
Yeah. But you know, overall, when they are alive, they are really useful with this kind of ability, and you know, we usually let them just roam free, but every now and then you get individuals that maybe were injured, or young ones that were abandoned by the mother, stuff like that wouldn't really survive in the wild, and we tend to take those in, and our people work with them, and they are often used as a kind of supportive element in therapy when you deal with trauma and stuff like that. They can actually help, like, take the edge off, so to say, of the bad memories and nightmares that people might have. So it actually helps a little bit there.
I think, have we been trialing them with wardens who have had encounters with squonks?
Yeah, it sometimes helps.
That's where I think I've recognized the name from then.
Yeah.
I think I heard about that project. I don't know how that went. But yeah, I'm kind of, that would make sense if we've been trying to use the orphaned ones, shall we say, that we've been looking after to try and deal with psychological damage from squonks.
Yeah. Unfortunately, often enough, the damage is so immense that even the Baku can't really deal with it. Yeah.
Oh,
We've
you
had
know.
incidents.
I've heard some people talk about the squonk and saying maybe if we could catch one and keep it around, maybe we could let it interact with the Leviathan and see if that makes the Leviathan a little bit more mellow. But that's a project for someone else, I think.
Oh, God.
I'm sure I'm not going in that one.
That could go very good or very bad.
Mellow or apocalypse? Take your bets.
Both. Anyway, you might be wondering how I came into contact with these creatures, because they don't really need to be contained in any way usually. They are benevolent creatures.
Yeah.
Yes, so our team, you know, we have people kind of monitoring unusual things around the world,
of course, that
might require our attention. And one of these things that hasn't happened the first time is that a lot of this kind of merchandise that I mentioned earlier, like pelts and dream catchers and stuff like that, there was almost a flood of that on the market in Japan, and that usually means that a new farming operation has popped up. So we actually have organized people every now and then who kind of breed and farm these creatures. You can kind of like a mink farm, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's never a good thing. So yeah, we were quite sure that one of these had popped up again. So yeah, I was sent to Japan with a couple of people to find out what's going on there, and we had to start somewhere. So I started off pretending to be the tourist who wants to buy some weird stuff, you know, asking around, trying to find the markets that aren't advertised in the tourist brochures.
Yeah,
and unfortunately, it's not the first time I've had to do stuff like that. So in a reasonable amount of time, we actually found a merchant that had stuff like that. And I managed to be subtle enough that he didn't immediately run away, and gave us enough time for our guys to apprehend him and talk to him for in a little more personal setting
Yeah.
to give us the location of their farm, basically.
We call it interrogation, people, not enhanced torture.
Yes. and enhanced thought. Yeah. I mean, the things we could do if we wanted, there's a lot of creatures we could find creative uses for.
Yeah, squonk.
Anyway.
Yeah. Squonk is the nuclear option for the CCI, so
Yeah. The bad thing about that is that nobody believes us at first. They could be in any way bad.
Yeah.
It's always like, oh no, not the squonk. And then we bring out the squonk, and then, there's a lot of crying, and it's never a pretty sight.
Just as a quick side note, if the European Court of Human Rights is listening, no, we don't use a squonk on people, I promise.
We should invite a lawyer on this show sometime. I'd like to hear about the legalities of bringing the squonk into an interrogation room.
Well, it's not a crime the first time.
Oh.
Carry on.
Yes, moving swiftly on. Yeah, so we figure out where their farm is, and it's very stereotypical, like an old warehouse kind of situation.
Yeah.
We find it, and we get in there, and it is a grim sight. Like, there's thousands probably of cages with more than one animal per cage. They are basically sleeping on top of each other, and the smell was just I haven't smelled anything like that before. It is not a great situation to describe, and what you could immediately see was that they were all behaving very erratically, and they're usually very calm and curious creatures, but they were all kind of, some were apathetic, some were more aggressive and like trying to open cages and stuff like that.
Behavior issues developing.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff. And we went in there, and sooner or later we bumped into the people that were running this whole operation, and apparently it had grown a little bit over their heads, and someone was being an idiot, and we very quickly noticed that they basically did not care about anything at all. They were barely functioning.
Yeah.
And you can... Listeners, you don't see Jack's face, but I can see that he knows what's happened, and it's very obvious. Basically, was almost like half their minds had been eaten away at, more or less, because, they weren't treating these animals very well, and they were just lashing out and eating what they can, basically, and it did not go well for them.
Yeah. It sounds a little bit like... it just reminds me a little bit about that creature, the H.I. that I was speaking about, probably about coming to a year or so ago now. But by the sounds of it, yours...
Been doing this for so long.
Well, it sounds like yours ended a lot nicer than mine, where the perpetrators appeared to get set on fire.
Yeah.
And it wasn't me. It wasn't me. It was the H.I.
Of course. In the official records, we'll keep saying that.
What's that kerosene behind your back, Jack? No.
They weren't set on fire, but they weren't doing very well. So we took these people into our care, and our doctors and psychologists are going to deal with that. Because at this point, they were really in no state to be arrested, basically.
Yeah, I was going to ask the next step, though, once we've kind of treated them. Would we be turning them over to the authorities with one of our wonderful excuses, or...?
Probably. I mean, it probably depends on how well they do and how well they recover. Sometimes there are points where you do not come back for this, but honestly, I'm not qualified to assess the situation there. I just know they were taken into care, and hopefully for them, our guys can do something about this, because at least, the medical staff at our locations, they know what they are dealing with. If you go to a random doctor or hospital, they're not gonna know what this is.
Yeah, that's one of the few places as a warden you don't really do a training like module. Is that the right way to say it? You don't go
I
and tend to
guess.
work as a doctor in the CCI. You do have to be qualified. It's probably one of the few roles
Yeah.
for the CCI that we won't train you.
One of the
To
few
be.
roles you have to be qualified for.
as in you don't have to have an existing qualification before you come to us.
Yeah. Yeah, but we took the people into care, and we called in the cavalry because there were thousands of animals in there, and
Wow.
they were kind of distributed among several locations that we have in Japan and in other countries as well.
Yeah.
And last I heard, basically our vets are trying to save however many they can.
Yeah.
We have in our vet team, we also have animal psychologists, stuff like that, that are trying to kind of rehabilitate these creatures. And yeah, I hope that we can kind of give them a decent life again after this. I can't guarantee that all of them are gonna make it, because even just physically, a lot of them were in very bad condition as far as I could tell it. But
yeah.
Well,
I mean, we have a good team when it comes to veterinary care for the animals. So I have hope.
Yeah, so do I.
And I've even worked with that team a couple of times. Ooh. It's existing qualifications. But yeah, so I have confidence that the majority of those creatures will be saved, and kudos to you for going and finding it.
Yeah.
It's a hard job being an investigator for the CCI at times, isn't it?
Yeah, sometimes you see things that you'd rather not see, but I guess that's part of the job.
I mean, half the time it's just trying to find it all.
Yeah.
Investigating is difficult.
It is. Or is it? Because even I can do it. Anyway.
Yeah. Anyway.
If people want to investigate their own stuff, where would you send them?
Well, I mean, I don't know. To your bathroom, if you're investigating yourself that much.
I don't think that's a beginner case.
But if you want to learn about how to do investigations the CCI way, don't know if that's any better, but it's the one we're going with. You can come and join us on our Discord, where you can find the link in the description in the show notes.
Yes.
Or
click
in
it now.
The YouTube notes. Wherever you want to find it, it's all in the description. And there you can speak to us about this show, about every other episode, about creatures you would like us to tell you about, because between me and Chris, we have pretty much seen most of the things out there, and we're usually one of the first ones sent out to the weird stuff that we haven't ever seen. So we're pretty knowledgeable. You can request episodes, and you can just generally chat and learn a little bit about the world that you didn't really know was actually there.
Yeah. You can even chat about vending machines with dubious contents.
Yep, I'm sure there's a chat channel for that somewhere. Or one can be made upon request. But
yes.
Yeah. In the meantime, though, once they've joined the Discord, what else could they do, Chris?
Well, I argue that they should do this before joining the Discord, because you're already at your podcast listening platform of choice, whatever that's called. And there you're gonna find a button, your own little investigation. You search around and you find a button, often shaped like a star, and you click it. And that's gonna be a rating for us.
Preferably the fifth one. Preferably the fifth
Yes.
one along. Not the first.
Yes. But then again,
engagement is engagement.
Engagement is engagement. But yeah, click that, give us a rating, tell us you love us, comment, share stuff with everyone you know and don't know, because people deserve to listen to us. And also give our back catalog a try, because we've been doing this for a while now, and we have a decent catalog of creatures that we have talked about on this show, and You don't have to listen to them in order, just scroll through, and if anything tickles your fancy, then just click it and enjoy.
Yeah, we've got a pretty strong back catalogue at this point, and I'm sure something will interest you.
Absolutely. It has to. It just has to. Also,
Must.
you should definitely not miss the next episode, so a very important thing for you to do is subscribing. That's actually the most important part of your personal investigation, your personal journey in life, is subscribing to this podcast. It will lead you to riches, both material and spiritual. It will be the light at the end of the tunnel.
You'll grow that extra few inches to be over 6 foot. You'll build those abs to be considered completely sexy.
Maybe you even grow a few inches in other parts.
You... God, that needs cutting.
Does it?
It will provide you with that promotion that you know you deserve. All because you pressed the follow, subscribe. Tell me about this podcast.
You put in the work, Steve. You deserve this.
Yeah.
You deserve better than this.
You too, Cheryl. You too.
Yeah. How much have you sacrificed, Cheryl?
Mm-hmm. You deserve this.
You do.
You deserve everything that's coming to you.
That we stop this. I think that's the point where we should probably cut our losses, and if there's nothing else left to say, I'm gonna say thank you very much for listening, and see you in the next one. Goodbye.
Goodbye.